What would you do if you believed that the people who were sworn to protect you and the community were stalking you? Where could you turn? And more importantly, would anyone believe you? Well, one man named John Lang experienced just that. And the more you look into this case, the more you start to believe that John might have been correct. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you the strange story of what happened to John Lang. Now, this case has a lot of strange twists and turns that I want to share with you. But first, let's look into who John Lang was. And honestly, there's not a lot of information on John Lang until this story came out. We know that he was originally born in Ohio and at some point moved to Fresno. We don't know why he did this, but what we do know is that he worked at the local Payless Brakes and Tire and also had two other businesses online connected with both his home address and his phone number. The first being Lang Marine, which is also the name of his YouTube channel, and the other business was called Valley Handyman. We know that he was previously married, then divorced, and that him and his ex-wife did have a daughter together. But other than that, we don't know too terrible much about his history. Now let's get into why John thought that the police were stalking him. John Lang was an activist who was trying to prove corruption within the Fresno Police Department. John believed that he had discovered that the Fresno police were running a license plate scam in low-income neighborhoods. He believed that the police were going to these local businesses, scanning the license plates of parked cars, and looking for any kind of criminal history or unregistered vehicles. Then the police would wait for that person to leave the parking lot so that they could pull them over, bring up all of their history, and then subsequently make an arrest. John would start to leave comments on the website of the local newspaper, the Fresno Bee, and once he did this, this actually brought a lot of attention to John. John used to have a website which no longer exists, and he would post on there that he wrote 2 separate emails to both the Fresno Bee and the Sacramento Bee, writing that a Fresno Bee employee named Jody Murray was sharing the IP addresses of people who were leaving negative comments on the website with the Fresno Police Department, so that the police would then start to stalk and harass these people who were talking negative about them online. And it was not long after sending these 2 emails that John believed he was being stalked by the police himself. Interestingly enough, John had security cameras all over the outside of his house and on the inside of his house, and every time he found something interesting, he would then post that online to his website and to his YouTube channel. Okay, so I want to go over just a few of the more interesting videos that John posted. One video shows John talking to his neighbors, one of which was a registered sex offender, and John also said that both were police informants. John said that whenever he went to leave, they tried to stop him, and that eventually he would just have to climb the fence to get in. Once John got into his house, he noticed that the lock on his door looked like it had been messed with, as well as his computer and printer. Now, he believed that his neighbors were trying to keep him occupied so that the police had time to go through his things. Another video that I wanted to share with you guys was one that John believed was an intimidation tactic, where a large group of police gathered across the street from John's house. I personally can see why he would believe this to be a form of harassment. Now, I'm not going to go through every video that John posted online, but I do want to share one more interesting one with you guys. The last video I wanted to talk about was a video of what John believed to be the police filming his house with a thermo imaging camera in order to see if he was home. Now, I have never seen a thermo imaging camera, and a lot of people say it's just a normal camera, and that Fresno is a pretty common place to film. But to me, it is weird that they stopped right outside of his house in a van. You can see the one guy talking on the phone, and the whole thing seemed really strange. John started to believe that the Fresno PD were actually trying to take his life, and he would post his concerns to Facebook. So now let's fast forward not long after all this strangeness began to January 20th of 2016, when John's neighbors started to notice smoke barreling out of his house. They called emergency services, and whenever the fire department got there, they tried to enter John's home, only to find out that every entrance had been barricaded from the inside. Once they were able to get into the house, it didn't take long for them to find John at the back of the house, laying in a puddle of blood. They quickly rushed him to the hospital, where he was not long after pronounced dead. Now, this strange case is about to get a whole lot stranger. John had been stabbed multiple times, and looked like the fire had been set intentionally. Soon after the body of John Lang was discovered, it was published in the Fresno PD by journalist Rory Appleton that the death was suspicious and that it was being investigated as a homicide. The article also said that Fresno Police Lieutenant Joe Gomez stated that John Lang had multiple stab wounds to his abdomen and upper back. 4 days later, another article came out stating the same thing, that John Lang had multiple stab wounds to his abdomen and upper back. But 2 months later, that was no longer being reported. The Fresno PD confirmed that John's death was a suicide, and that the stab wounds were superficial, and that there were no stab wounds to his back. The official cause of death was smoke inhalation from a fire that John had started himself. Even more interesting, in the coroner's report, it stated that John's clothes had been removed and placed in a white body bag underneath him. And it was noted in the coroner's report that the t-shirt that he had on did not have any tears that would coincide with the stab wounds that he had. The police also confirmed that a 10-inch serrated bread knife was the weapon used in the stabbings. Not only does that seem strange to me that a serrated bread knife was what they said was used for the stabbing, but if you look back at the coroner's report, it states that John's heart had actually been penetrated by the knife that stabbed him. A bread knife, to me at least, doesn't seem like the kind of weapon that would do that, not without an extreme amount of force behind it. And if you want to read the coroner's report, I will leave a link to it down in the description of this video. And you will see a lot of discrepancies with what it says and with what we're being told. Ultimately, John Lang's death was ruled a suicide, and a lot of people believe that that could be true, and that John was suffering from mental illness and schizophrenia, that he convinced himself that the police were after him, and that ultimately led to him taking his own life. And to be honest, it's a credible theory. If you go back and look at some of the other videos he posted, one of which was just a man walking down the street who tried to pet his dog, which John believed were police trying to befriend his dog so that they can later come back and not have the dog try and attack them. To me, this is a strange case, and to be honest with you, I haven't even covered a lot of the videos that were recorded. But I want to know what you guys think. Was John being stalked by the police, or was he just sadly a victim of mental illness? With that being said, I want to thank you for hanging out to the end of the video. I would appreciate it if you share the video, hit the like button, and if you want to be truly legendary, hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for coming with me on this one, and I will see you in the next one.